My name is Kalor, Agent K07 of the Silken Web. My mission? To save Gore and Earth, to go boldly to the places Vraxis and the Priest King's nest send me.
This is not the Gore you remembers. This is the Gore that remembers you. Agents of the Silken Web.
Blades of Three, A Gorian Tale of the Silken Web. Part 4, The Hunter's Rest. The silver ship waited where they had left it, its hull cool now, its engines silent, its cloaking fields shimmering faintly in the dawn light. The glade was peaceful, the forest quiet, the stars fading above the hills of Koroba. No Kurii had found them. No enemy had come. The Priest King technology that hid the ship from sight and from sensors had done its work. Kalor limped up the ramp, Sura's arm around his waist. His shoulder was stiff, the wound still fresh, but the bleeding had stopped. He had survived. They had all survived. Sarakin came last, leaning on Lyra, his severed whip dragging behind him. He stopped at the ramp and looked back at the hills where the cavern lay hidden. "They will not be the last," he said. "No," Tarl said. "They will not be the last." The bathhouse of Koroba was not the largest in the city, but it was the finest. Its walls were of white marble, veined with gold, its floors of smooth stone heated from below by the same fires that warmed the water. 3 pools steamed in the central chamber, one hot, one cold, one tepid, their waters fed by springs that ran deep beneath the city. The air was thick with the scent of oils and herbs, of clean steam and ancient stone. It was not empty. Slaves moved through the chambers with the quiet efficiency of those who had performed these tasks for generations. They were not the personal slaves of warriors or merchants. They belonged to the bathhouse itself, trained from childhood in the rituals of the Gorian bath. Their tunics were white, their hair bound back, their eyes downcast. They carried towels and oils, strigils and cups of wine, and they moved without sound. A slave knelt at the edge of the hot pool, her hands folded, waiting. Another stood by the cold pool, a silver vessel of oil in her hands. A third, older, her face lined with years of service, directed the others with gestures so small they were almost invisible. Kalor lowered himself into the hot pool with a groan that seemed to come from the deepest part of his bones. The water was almost too hot, scalding the blood and oil from his skin, but he did not move. He let it burn. He let it take the pain. The slave by the hot pool rose and approached him. She did not speak. She did not need to. She lifted a vessel of water from the edge of the pool and poured it slowly over his shoulders, washing away the last of the Kurii oil. Then she took a sponge from the silver dish beside her and began to clean his skin, her strokes long, firm, methodical. It was not a woman's touch. It was the touch of a servant who knew her craft. Kalor closed his eyes and let her work. Sarakin sat on the edge of the cold pool, his feet in the water, his wounded side wrapped in fresh bandages that Lyra had brought from the ship. He did not go into the hot water. He was a man of Port Car, born to the sea, and he knew that cold healed where heat only soothed. The slave by the cold pool approached him with a silver vessel of oil, her eyes downcast, her hands steady. She poured the oil over his feet, his legs, his arms, working it into his skin with practiced hands. He did not look at her. He was watching Kaler. "Tuchuk," he said, his voice echoing off the marble walls. "You look like a man who has been dragged through a herd of Basque." Kaler opened one eye. "I feel like a man who has been dragged through a herd of Basque, and then trampled, and then dragged again." Sarakin's laugh was soft, almost gentle. "That is how victory feels, when it is earned." The older slave approached Tarl, who sat apart from the others, his body submerged to the neck, his eyes closed. She carried a bronze strigil, its blade curved and sharp, polished by years of use. She knelt beside him and waited. Tarl opened his eyes. "I know the ritual," he said. "I have done it before, in this city, when I was young." The slave said nothing. She lifted the strigil and began to scrape the oil from his skin, the blade moving in long, sure strokes, skimming away the dirt and the sweat and the memory of the cavern. He let her work. He let the ceremony wash over him. It was old, this ritual, older than Koroba, older than any city on Gore. It was the way warriors cleansed themselves after battle, the way they shed the blood and the dust and the weight of what they had done. When she was finished, she poured clean water over his shoulders and stepped back. She did not bow, she did not speak. She simply returned to her place by the wall and waited for the next warrior who would come to be cleansed. Tarl sat in the water, watching the steam rise, watching the slaves move through their ancient tasks, watching Kaler and Sarakin wash away the night. He thought of the cavern, he thought of the Kurii, he thought of the mother who had sent them to die. And he thought of his father waiting for him in the tower he had rebuilt, waiting for the son who had not come home in 20 years. He would go to him, after the baths, after the cleansing, after he was whole again. In the slaves' cleaning room, Sura and Lyra knelt side by side, their hands busy with the work that had been theirs since before they could remember. The clothes of the 3 warriors lay before them, torn, stained, stiff with blood and oil and the dust of the cavern. Kaler's tunic was black and red, the colors of the torturer's guild of the wagon peoples. Sura lifted it carefully, her fingers tracing the tears. The black leather was scarred where the Kurii's claws had raked his shoulder, the red silk lining stained beyond saving. She knew what those colors meant. Every slave knew. The torturer's guild was feared even among the fierce warriors of the plains. Kaler had not spoken of it. He did not need to. She would wash it, mend what could be mended, replace what could not. The red dye was rare, she would have to find it in the market. The black leather she could treat herself. Lyra held Sarakin's tunic, blue and yellow, the colors of the slaver subcaste of the merchants, the guild that had made Port Car their home and their fortune. Within the merchant caste there is a hierarchy. The merchants who sell grain, cloth, and tools are seen as honorable traders. The slavers are seen as necessary, perhaps, but not honorable. And the slavers of Port Car are seen as the darkest of them all, ruthless, efficient, and without mercy. Sarakin wears blue and yellow. He is of that subcaste. He does not deny it. He does not apologize for it. The silk was fine but ruined, the stitching pulled apart. She shook her head slowly. "This cannot be saved. He will need new cloth." Sura nodded. "We will find it. The merchants of Koroba have good wool, not silk but good. He will not complain." "He will," Lyra said, a small smile on her lips. "He always complains, but he will wear it." They worked in silence for a while, scrubbing, rinsing, wringing, their hands moving with the ease of long practice. Sura's tunic was gone, given to Kaler to bind his wound. She wore only her collar now and a thin shift that Lyra had found in the ship. Her skin was pale, marked with the bruises of the night, but her hands were steady. Tarl's tunic was crimson, the color of a warrior of Koroba, the wool torn at the sleeve, stained with Kurii oil. Sura set it aside. The crimson dye was common here, she could replace it easily, but the tunic itself was old, worn thin in places. She would find new wool, good wool, the color of a warrior who had earned his place. These will take until tomorrow, she said. They will need new clothes until then. Lyra rose, drying her hands on a cloth. There are tunics in the ship, simple things, brown and gray. They will serve. Sura nodded. And the weapons? Lyra's hands stilled. The weapons are not ours to touch. No, they will have to speak to the smith themselves. Sura looked at the door where the men had gone to the baths. The law is clear. A slave who touches a weapon without permission can be killed, even here, even after what we did. Lyra was quiet for a moment. He will not kill me. He has never raised his hand to me. He has never needed to, Sura said. But the law is not his. It is the city's, the caste's, the world's. She picked up Kaler's tunic again, her fingers finding the tears, the stains, the places where the blood had dried black, the black and red of the torturer's guild, the colors of a man who had learned to cause pain before he learned to fight. She did not know what he had done in the wagons of the wagon peoples. She did not need to know. She knew what he had done in the cavern. She knew what he had let her do. We will wash, she said. We will mend. We will find new cloth. And tomorrow, when they are clean and dressed, they will take their blades to the smith. That is what we can do. That is what we always do, Lyra said. Sura looked at her. Is it not enough? Lyra thought of Sarakin's face when she threw him the knife, the way he had looked at her, the way he had said, I will have to learn to let someone catch me when I fall. It is enough, she said, for now. When the men emerged from the baths, clean for the first time in days, they found the simple tunics Lyra had laid out for them. Brown wool, coarse, peasant's cloth, nothing like the leather and silk they were used to, but they were clean, they were whole, and they smelled of the herbs the slaves had used to wash them. Sarakin held his tunic up to the light, his face a mask of disgust. Wool, he said, peasant's wool. It is Koroba wool, Lyra said, her voice carefully neutral. The finest in the world. The merchants of Ar pay gold for it. Warriors of the high castes wear it when they cannot afford silk. I can afford silk, Sarakin said. You have no silk. Your silk was ruined in the cavern. The Kurii shredded it. This is what we could find. It will serve until tomorrow when your new clothes are ready. Sarakin looked at her. She was not kneeling. She was standing before him, her hands at her sides, her eyes steady. She had thrown him a knife when he needed it. She had bound his wound when he could not. She had waited for him in the cavern when he thought he would not come out. He took the tunic. It will serve, he said, until tomorrow. Lyra's smile was small, but it was there. After the baths, after the simple tunics, after a meal of roasted meat and fresh bread that Sura had bought in the market, the three warriors walked through the streets of Koroba toward the forge of Artemis, the smith who had served the city since before its destruction. He was an old man, his hands scarred, his arms thick with the muscle of a lifetime of hammering steel. He did not look up when they entered. Kaler laid his knife on the anvil. The blade was still stained with Kurii oil, the edge chipped in 2 places. Artemis picked it up, turned it in his hands, grunted. This is not Gorian steel, he said. It is not, Kaler said. It was given to me by the priest kings. It cut Kurii. It will cut again. Artemis grunted again. It will need new edge. The oil has eaten into the steel. I can clean it, sharpen it, make it whole. It will take a day. Kaler nodded. Do it. Sarakin laid his severed whip on the anvil. Artemis looked at it, then at Sarakin, then at the whip again. This is not a weapon, I know. It is a whip of the slavers of Port Car. It was cut by a Kurii. I need a new one." Artemis picked up the severed strands, examined the leather, the braiding, the weight. "I can make you a whip. It will not be the same. I do not know your hand, your arm, your strike. It will take time to learn." Sarakin's smile was thin. "I have time." Artemis nodded slowly. He turned to Tarl, who laid his sword on the anvil. The blade was gory and steel, old, worn, but still true. Artemis ran his thumb along the edge, tested the point, held it to the light. "This is good steel," he said. "It has been well used." "It has been used," Tarl said. "It needs to be sharp, it needs to be whole." "It will be, by tomorrow." Tarl picked up the sword again, felt its weight. "Tomorrow," he said. The simple tunics Lyra had found were rough against Kaeler's skin, nothing like the fine leather and silk he was used to. But they were clean, they were whole, and they smelled of the herbs the slaves had used to wash them. Sura knelt at his feet, her head bowed, her hands folded. She had been waiting for him since the baths, had watched him emerge from the steam, had risen to dress him before he could reach for his own clothes. It was her duty. It was her right. He looked down at her. Her shift was thin, the fabric worn from use, the bruises on her arms dark against her pale skin. She had thrown herself between him and a Kurii. She had driven a knife into its back. She had saved his life. "Stand," he said. She rose, her eyes downcast, her hands still folded. He reached out, his fingers touching her chin, lifting her face to his. "Look at me." She met his eyes. There was no fear in them, there was no submission. There was something else, something he had never seen in a slave before. "You chose to be mine," he said. "I chose to be yours. In the cavern, you chose to die for me." She did not answer. She did not need to. He pulled her against him, his hands in her hair, his mouth on hers. She yielded, but it was not submission. It was choice. It was gift. It was something he had never known he needed until she gave it to him. Her hands found his shoulders, his arms, his chest, tracing the scars, the wounds, the places where the Kurii had marked him. He let her. He let her touch him as no slave had ever touched him, as no woman had ever touched him, as if she were learning him, memorizing him, claiming him. He carried her to the sleeping firs. She did not resist. She did not yield. She chose. Across the ship, Sarakin sat in the dim light, his severed whip in his hands, his fingers tracing the broken strands. Lyra knelt beside him, watching. "You should rest," she said. "I will rest when I have a new whip." She rose, moving behind him, her hands on his shoulders. He stiffened, then relaxed under her touch. She had learned his body in the months she had been his, learned where the tension lived, where the pain hid, where he needed her most. "You will not find a new whip tonight," she said. "You will find it tomorrow. Tonight you will rest." He laughed low and soft. "You are not a slave tonight." "I am always a slave." "You are a woman who threw me a knife." She leaned close, her lips near his ear. "I am a woman who will always throw you a knife, when you need it, when you do not know you need it." He turned, pulling her into his lap, his hands on her hips, his eyes on her face. "And when I do not need a knife?" She smiled. "Then I will give you something else." She kissed him. It was not the kiss of a slave to her master. It was the kiss of a woman who had chosen, who would always choose, who would not be bought or sold or commanded. He let her choose. The next day the clothes were ready. Sura had found red dye for Kaeler's tunic, had treated the leather until it was soft and dark, had sewn the tiers with thread of silk. She had worked through the night, her fingers steady, her eyes focused. When she laid the tunic before him, Kaeler looked at it for a long moment. "It is good," he said. "You have done well." She knelt, her head bowed. "I serve." He lifted her to her feet. You chose. She did not answer. She did not need to. Lyra had found wool for Sarakin's tunic, Koroba wool, the finest in the world, dyed blue and yellow, the colors of the merchant caste. She laid it before him with her head bowed, waiting. He picked it up, felt the weight, the texture, the warmth. It is not silk, he said. It is Koroba wool, Lyra said. The finest in the world. Warriors of the high castes wear it when they cannot afford silk. He looked at her. I can afford silk. You have no silk. This is what we could find. It is good. It will serve. He pulled it on. It fit well, better than his old tunic, the wool soft against his skin, the colors bright. He moved his arms, tested the shoulders, the sleeves. It was not silk, but it was good. He looked at Lyra. It will serve, he said. Her smile was small, but it was there. Sura found Tarl at the edge of the market square, staring at the towers of the central cylinder where the administrator's chambers were. She knelt beside him, silent. She did not speak. She knew when to be silent. I lived here once, Tarl said. His voice was low, rough. Before the destruction, before the priest kings. I learned to speak Gorian in this city. I learned to fight. I learned to be a man. My father taught me. He was administrator then, too. Sura did not answer. She did not need to. He sent me to steal the home stone of Ar. I did it. And the priest kings destroyed Koroba because of what I did, or because of what they wanted. I do not know. He looked at the towers, at the lights beginning to glow in the windows, at the city that rose from the ruins his father rebuilt. I have not been back since the destruction. I have not seen him. I have not wanted to. Sura looked up at him. He rebuilt the city, she said. He did that for you. He believed you would come back. Tarl was silent for a long moment. Then he walked toward the central cylinder. Sura did not follow. This was not her place. The central square of Koroba was crowded with people from every caste, warriors in their scarlet, scribes in their blue, merchants in their many colors, peasants in their brown. Lanterns hung from the trees, casting golden light across the cobblestones. Music filled the air, a dozen different songs from a dozen different singers, each trying to win the favor of the crowd and the purse of gold. Sura and Lyra walked behind their masters, their heads bowed, their hands folded. But their eyes were not on the ground. They watched the crowd, the singers, the shadows between the lanterns. They had been told to watch. They had been told to see. Kaler stood near the fountain, his shoulder against the stone, his eyes scanning the square. He had dressed as a warrior now, his tunic black and red, his knife at his belt. Beside him, Sarakin leaned against a tree, his new whip coiled at his hip, his eyes half closed, watching. Tarl stood apart, his gray eyes fixed on the stage where the singers performed. He did not see them. He was looking for the man in the yellow robes, the man with the dark hair and the beard, the man Vraxes had shown them in the nest. He saw him at the edge of the crowd, standing beneath a lantern, his face half in shadow, his eyes fixed on the stage. He was not watching the singers. He was watching the crowd. He was waiting for someone. Kaler moved first, sliding through the press of bodies, his hand on his knife. Sarakin followed, circling around the fountain, cutting off the man's retreat. Tarl came last, walking slowly, openly, drawing the man's eye. Lucius saw him. His hand went to his belt, to something hidden beneath his yellow robes. But he did not run. He did not call out. He stood still, his eyes fixed on Tarl, and waited. Lucius of Ar, Tarl said. The man's smile was thin. I am, and you are the one who destroyed the beacon. Before Tarl could answer, a voice rose from the stage. An old man, his voice cracked but strong, his song ancient, his words in a tongue Tarl did not recognize. The crowd stilled. Even Lucius turned his head. The song was not in the common Gorian. It was not in any language Tarl had heard in Koroba. It was older, stranger, its melody winding through the square like smoke through winter branches. Sura's hand tightened on Kaler's arm. "I know that song," she whispered. "It is an old song. From before the cities, from the first days when the priest-king still walked among men." Kaler's eyes narrowed. "What is it about?" "A place," she said. "A place where the first scribes wrote down what the priest-kings told them. The first laws, the first histories, the secrets that were not meant for all ears. It was sealed, they say, hidden, so that men would not know what the priest-kings did before they brought us here." The singer finished, the crowd applauded, and the moment passed. Lucius's face was pale. He looked at Tarl, at Kaler, at Sarakin, and for a moment there was something in his eyes that was not fear. "That song should not be sung," he said. "Not here, not now." "Why?" Tarl asked. "Because the place is real. It is beneath this city. It has been beneath this city since before Koroba was built. The Kurii found it. They were not building a beacon to summon their fleet. They were digging. They were searching. They were trying to open what the priest-king sealed." Kaler's hand was on his knife. "What is in there?" Lucius looked at the stage, at the old singer who was already walking away into the crowd. "I do not know. No one knows. The Kurii did not find it. Not yet. But they were close. They were very close." They took Lucius to the ship. He did not resist. He had been waiting for this, Tarl thought. He had been waiting for someone to find him, to question him, to force him to speak the truth he had been hiding for 3 years. The map he drew for them was old, older than the paper it was drawn on. Tarl studied it by lantern light, his fingers tracing the lines that led from the quarry tunnels to a chamber marked only with a symbol he did not recognize. "What is this?" he asked. Lucius's voice was hoarse. "I do not know. The symbol was there when I found the chamber. It is not Kurii. It is not Gorian. It is older. The priest-kings put it there to mark what they buried." "Buried?" Sarakin leaned forward. "What did they bury?" "I do not know. No one knows. The Kurii thought it was a weapon, something they could use against the priest-kings, something that would give them victory. They dug for years, following the old tunnels, breaking through walls that had not been touched since the first stones of Ar were laid." Kaler's voice was cold. "And you helped them?" "I helped them dig. I did not know what they were looking for. I did not know what they would find. I was paid. I was told it was stone. Good stone. Stone for the foundations of a new tower." "You lied to yourself," Sarakin said. Lucius did not deny it. "I lied to myself. I lied to everyone. And now the Kurii are dead, the beacon is destroyed, and the archive is still there, waiting to be opened." Tarl looked at the map. "How deep is it?" "Deep, deeper than the quarries, deeper than the tunnels. The Kurii broke through 3 walls before they reached the chamber. The 4th wall is still sealed. It is carved with the same symbol. It will not break. It cannot be broken." "Then how do we open it?" Lucius was silent for a long moment. "There is a key. It is in the nest. The priest-kings took it when they sealed the archive. Without it, the wall will not open. Without it, whatever is inside will stay inside." Kaler looked at Tarl. "Then we go back to the nest. We tell Vraxes. We let him decide." "And if he decides to leave it sealed?" Sarakin asked. "If he decides that the knowledge should stay buried?" Tarl folded the map. "Then it stays buried. The priest-kings sealed it for a reason. I do not trust them, but I trust that some things are better left in the dark." That night Tarl could not sleep. He walked through the streets of Koroba, past the towers his father had rebuilt, past the market where the slaves had bought wool and dye, past the square where the old singer had sung his song. The city was quiet, the lanterns low, the people sleeping. He walked toward the central cylinder where the administrator's chambers were. He had not been there since he was young, since before the destruction, since before the priest kings took him and made him their agent. He did not know if he was ready. He climbed the stairs. The guards knew him or knew of him and let him pass. He stood before the door of his father's chambers, his hand on the wood, and did not knock. The door opened. Matthew Cabot stood in the doorway, unchanged by the years that had passed since Tarl last saw him, except for the lines on his face. The stabilization serums had done their work. His hair was still dark, his skin still smooth, his body still strong. But there were new lines around his eyes, deep grooves carved by grief and waiting. He looked at his son, the son he had trained, the son he had watched become a man in this city, the son who had left and never returned. "You came back," Matthew said. His voice was not angry, it was not sad. It was the voice of a man who had been waiting for a very long time. "You left first," Tarl said. "You left us on Earth. You came back to Gore, you became administrator, you rebuilt this city. I grew up not knowing why you were gone, why you did not return for me. And then the priest kings brought me here to you. You trained me. You taught me to speak Gorian, to fight, to be a man of this world. You were my father again." Matthew's hands folded on the map on his table. His eyes did not leave his son's face. "And then you left again," Tarl said. "I became a warrior of Koroba. I fought for this city. I stole the home stone of Ar because you asked me to, and the priest kings destroyed everything. They destroyed this city. They scattered its people. They burned the towers you rebuilt. And you were gone. You saved the home stone, but you did not save me. You did not come for me." Matthew's voice was low. "I could not. You were the administrator. You rebuilt this city from rubble. You could have found me. You could have brought me back. Instead, I was sent to the nest. I was made an agent of the priest kings. I was sent to the prison moon. I was hunted, imprisoned, cast out. I survived. I did it alone." Matthew's hands trembled. "I did not know." "You knew enough. You knew they had taken me. You knew they had used me. You did not stop them. I asked them to bring you to Gore. I asked them to bring you to me. They did, but they did not bring you to me. They brought you to war. They brought you to the nest. They brought you to the prison moon. They brought you everywhere but here until now." His voice cracked. "I did not know they would destroy the city. I did not know they would scatter its people. I did not know what they would do to you. I was wrong. I have been wrong for 500 years." Tarl looked at his father, the man who had trained him, the man who had left him twice, the man who had rebuilt the city he had lost. "You are still administrator," Tarl said. "I am still administrator. The city is rebuilt. The home stone is where it belongs. Some of the people have returned. Others are scattered. Others are dead." He looked at his son. "You are alive. You are here. That is enough." "You know what is down there," Tarl said. "Beneath the city, the archive." Matthew nodded slowly. "I was there when it was sealed. I was young then, newly given the stabilization serums, one of the first humans the priest kings trusted enough to bring into the nest. The old mother showed me the archive. She showed me what she buried. She told me that one day someone would come to open it. She did not say who. She did not say when. She only said, 'When he comes, let him find what I have hidden.'" He rose from his chair, moving to a chest in the corner of the room. He opened it, lifted out a small object wrapped in silk. He unwrapped it slowly, carefully, and held it out to his son. It was a shard of stone, not large, not beautiful, not carved. It was rough, broken, worn smooth by time and touch. But when Tarl took it, he felt something, a warmth, a pulse, a presence that was not his own. "This is the home stone of the village that was here before Koroba," Matthew said. "The old mother gave it to me before she sealed the archive. She said, 'Give this to the one who comes. He will know what to do.'" Tarl held the stone. It was warm in his hand. It pulsed with a light that was not light, a presence that was not presence. He had held home stones before. He had never held one like this. "What is in the archive?" he asked. Matthew shook his head. "I do not know. No one knows. The old mother took the secret with her when she died, but she wanted it found. She wanted it opened. She wanted someone to know what she buried." He looked at his son. "She wanted you to know." "Why me?" "Because you are my son. Because you were born of earth and gore. Because you have walked in both worlds. Because you have served the priest kings and been cast out by them. Because you have survived. Because you are the only one who can open what she sealed." Tarl left his father's chambers with the stone wrapped in silk, hidden beneath his tunic. He walked through the streets of Koroba, past the towers his father had rebuilt, past the market where the slaves had bought wool and dye, past the square where the old singer had sung his song. The city was quiet, the lanterns low, the people sleeping. He walked toward the ship where the others were waiting. Sura was waiting for him at the ramp. She knelt, her head bowed, her hands folded. He lifted her to her feet. "I have found it," he said, "the key." She looked at him, her eyes wide. "The archive." "The archive. Tomorrow we open it."